Hi, I'm Michael Monasterio, and I'm here at the Unity of the Palm Beaches. I'm an intern here. I'm one of two. Sarah Force is the other intern, and we are mentoring under Reverend Taylor Stevens. Um, I'm doing a talk today about race. It's entitled "The Race Curse." Um, in some of the writings of Charles Fillmore, he talks about some of the race errors, some of the things we hold on to as human race, as humans, that don't serve us, things we need to let go of, things so our divine nature can take over and can lead us in on the path to the kingdom of heaven within ourselves. And so I thought race was a great issue because there's so much controversy and things haven't let go, and so many societal problems that are based on race that are, to me, so ridiculous in our evolution. So I'm going to start with a story. In fact, I have a couple, but one I want to start is very important to me as I thought about this subject of race. A friend of mine came to mind, and I had a friend. He was my childhood friend, and we grew up together. His name was Mark, and Mark was just a really attractive, talented, friendly, hardworking guy, and he died tragically in his 20s. And it was very devastating to his friends and family because, when people die that young, it's always like what they could have been or what could have happened. Or it's almost, it's like watching possibilities, right? It's like watching potential disappear. It's heartbreaking on so many different levels. And I'm going to tie all these things in. This is my next illusion. My next illusion, things for you to imagine is, so when we look at the planet Earth in those movies like Nova or any of those National Geographics, when they look at the world from space, it's just this beautiful marble, right? Remember that show when you were a kid, Big Blue Marble? This big, beautiful orb floating in space. And all those, you don't see the line just seeing a globe, right? You don't see the United States, you don't see Russia, you don't see different colors. You just see this beautiful globe, this one unit of the Earth. So all the inhabitants, everything that's there is all contained in this one thing. And so all the divisions that we make, North America, South America, the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of Trump, whatever we want to call it now, the Gulf, the oceans, every single thing was created. We created that. We put these lines and names on this beautiful earth that we have for reasons of control, reasons of power, reasons of resources, reasons of nationalism. To further divide each other for the purpose of getting an advantage on other people, or feeling superior to other people, or putting other people down. A lot of reasons why we do it, but it's human nature. In fact, I was talking to my wife about this. Do you know the idea of racism is actually instinctual? Way in our reptilian brain, our survival brain, when someone came over the hill, like we were in the village, and someone would come over the hill, we would get afraid and get angry because usually if they didn't look like us, if they weren't one of our village, they were going to take our stuff and eat our food, and take our women, whatever the poor, inflict bad things on us. So by nature, by instinct, we would bring our back up and we'd in that peace. So all of these things we live in, the fact that race is such a big deal in America, it's all instinctual. They could say it's all something we're just born like that. My parents were like that. My family's like that. I might be a little racist, but who's not? We have all these things all these labels we put on each other that hold us into this mindset that actually 99% of them don't even serve us anymore, but we hold on to them. That's why I call it a curse, because that's what really a curse is. A curse is something that goes on from generation to generation that they talk about in biblical times, like something one generation does, and then generations after pay for it. In fact, if you read Deuteronomy, there's many curses, generational curses that we have. I believe that's one of them. Like somewhere way back, somebody decided this is how we're going to treat people, and then people just accept it. Like they have to. And so I have one more. So the other one is, you remember that song "Imagine" by John Lennon? Gosh, I thought that was the hokiest thing. I really thought it was ridiculous. You know, when I first heard that song, I don't know how old I was, but I remember hearing it in my teenage years because it's always around. It's the Beatles. It's in our consciousness. And imagine there's no heaven, and imagine there's no this, and no countries, and no brotherhood of man, and no people living for today, and all this. And I really, at the time, I grew up in New York City, so for me, the whole thing was so ridiculous. The whole hippie concept of sharing, of us being the same. And then I learned later that was a Christian thing, even though I grew up in the Catholic Church. It wasn't really the vibe. The vibe wasn't everybody the same. The vibe wasn't any of that. The vibe was us and them, and we were the ones, and it was like still that vibe. But the idea that we kind of all were the same, and we're all beings of light, and we're all and we all have a divine nature, and we're all kind of the same, and we should be sharing this thing and this experience, this worldwide experience. It just seems so hokey to me. And then as I age and I have children, and I develop in this unity movement, and I develop spiritually, my spiritual evolution. I've come to almost long for that, you know? I've come to long for the innocence of that. In our unity service, at the end of service, we actually hold hands and sing together. I mean, it is big like Kumbaya. It is big like 60s. Like you be camping somewhere, you know, at a Christian camp, and they do that, you know, and maybe some part of me feels as corny as well. I felt a little corny when we did it. And then that natural instinct in me to love other people and to love other people and to believe that nonsense, that imagined thing, and really to believe that. Because honestly, if it would work where we would just give up the labels, then we could really be like that. We could really be all holding hands, thinking about this world is together because it's us. It's all of us. And if every single human being felt that way, think about things that would go away. And so, so here's my experiment. If 1 hour a day, you can get in a quiet place and picture the world without labels. Just think in your head all the labels that we have that make us, divide us, you know? So we're not men, we're not women, we're not gay, we're not straight, we're not Americans, we're not Russians, we're not Catholics, we're not Jews, we're not Muslim, we're not rich, we're not poor, we're not. Oh, you can go in your head. Just go in your head. Just think of every single name you have for someone or something and remove it. And some people won't let it go because that's who they are. That's their identity, right? I'm a black man. I've been a black man my whole life. I have to come past the system, and the system is out to get me and all. And this stuff, that tape that runs in your head. An aside, I was raised in a non-black family. I'm mixed race. And I was raised in a Latin family. My mother's Puerto Rican. My father's Filipino. They're both immigrants. Genetically, my mother was WASP and my father was African. So in a sense, I'm the real American mutt, right? I'm the true American mutt. I really have everything in there. All the bad things said about Obama and all the bad things about anything. I really couldn't even be racist against anybody because I kind of got it all in there, right? All of that's in there. And in some ways, it made it hard for me to grow up in an environment where everything is such strict boxes. But as I'm an adult, I'm like, what a great experience. All the pain I felt from the racism I felt as a child, from every color that I've been, white, black racism, there's tons of, everybody got some. Black, Hispanic racism. Every single people have a reason to be racist and won't let go of their racism. All the pain I felt from all that my whole life was just so I could be at this point now to realize how ridiculous it is and how it only is meant to keep us down and keep us apart. And to remove that, to stop that, is only for me to stop it and say, it doesn't matter to me. I love you, being of light. I'm a being of light. I'm a being of light. I'm a child of God. I'm a beautiful child of God, and so are you. And so all these things that we have that we think we need, we don't need them. The lines don't help us. Because if you wipe this out, and it's possible now, right? Some knucklehead in charge could really have enough stuff to wipe out every single thing we see. And for the few people that are left after the Holocaust, after this nightmare, will be struggling. You think they're going to care back then when they have to eat and they just want a nice place where there's water and shelter? Anybody's going to be worried about that nonsense? Maybe some who are in the shelter might feel that way. But if you just want to get in that shelter, I don't think you're going to care. If you go to hospitals now, I was a nursing student for some years. When you see people when they're close to death, they just want you to take care of them. They just want to feel that love. They want somebody to hold them. They want somebody to touch them. They don't care what color you are. When people are at their worst, when all they can think of is life and death, all those things fade away. I just went with my wife. Her mother just passed. And we were at her mother's home. And she was in hospice. And when you watch somebody at the end of their life, you realize what's important and what's not. When you watch somebody just to breathe, to inhale and exhale is an effortful process. And they're holding on. And in some ways you think to yourself, why are they holding on? What are they really holding on to? And the essence of that love of life goes beyond. It's at our core as beings. It's at our base core. And I could just see her mother lying there and could connect with that human being and really could connect with us on a spiritual way. And all I could think was, I wish he could get some peace. Because some people hold on because they're afraid. They don't know what's going to happen. And I think that's the reason why people hold on to racism, because they don't know what's going to happen. They're afraid of other people. I think people hold on to sexism because, somehow they're going to lose something or lose control, or their insecurities are going to show and they're going to lose their position. And people are classless, class systems. Oh, I want to hold on to what I feel over somebody, right? All these lines we make are really the same thing. Oh, the sexuality. Well, you don't have to worry about who somebody's sleeping with, as if you care, as if anybody cares who I'm sleeping with. But if we care, what do we care about, really? Why do we care so much about that? Because that line somehow justifies our existence and gives us a position different than someone, above them or something, gives us some solid ground of where we are. When, if you had the courage to let go of that stuff, the freedom that we would have, the real freedom, the kingdom of heaven they talk about, is really right there. I'm going to throw some scripture in because that's who I am, right? So the woman at the well was a Samaritan, if anybody remembers that story. In fact, it's a pretty big story because it's a few chapters in there, and a few of the Gospels talk about this woman at the well. This woman at the well was a Samaritan. Back then, the Samaritans were hated. They were like the black people, the N-word. The Samaritans were the N-word in the Jews because they looked down on them and they were everything bad. So here was Jesus, the Son of God, the Christ, came and had a long conversation with this woman. First of all, men weren't supposed to talk with women back then. It was a thing, especially an unmarried woman, especially a woman who wasn't your wife. And to talk to an unescorted woman was a big deal. And then talk to a Samaritan woman was even a bigger deal. But why would he give this great message of hope, this great message of hope that's repeated again and again, living water? He'd give her this truth when he really came for the Jews. And the Jews would say the Jewish men. He really came for the Jewish men. And Jewish women and children kind of got it, but it really was for Jewish men, for us. And he passed all of them, and he talked the lowest. Whatsoever that I do to the least of my brothers, that you're doing to me. That stuff is nonsense. And we have evolved past that. And we need to evolve past that. And we can do it. We can have that imagined thing. In fact, in the unity movement, they say that imagination is God. Our imagination source is God, because out of our imagination, we can create whatever we want. Whatever world we want to create, we can do it within our imagination. And then once we see it internally, it can be shown. We can see it externally. And it has to start there. It has to start in the kingdom of heaven. and it's possible, and it's powerful, and it's so real. Slavery was a reality until enough people felt it wasn't. The gay rights movement, gays can marry now, gays can walk in the streets. As one time they'd arrest you for being gay. It was illegal to be a homosexual. And now they can, because enough people believed it. Why can't we get to that place where we believe that, imagine that crazy story of us kind of being the same, of us all being children of God, of us being children of light? Imagine that world. I ask you, imagine. Yes, I'm giving you that hokey hippie thing. If you could imagine that, if you could imagine that I'm not I'm not a brown guy from the Bronx who used to be Catholic talking to you, but I'm just a being trying to give you truth that I learned that saved my life, to pass that truth on to you, to hopefully make your life easier and to make everyone's life easier. So let's imagine that. Let's take that hour to really see people without their lines and without the lines that now separate us, so that things happen, so we can stop being insensitive to children being bombed in Gaza, so we can stop being sensitive to children that starve in America, so we can stop being insensitive to children who bomb victims of these wars all over the world, and we can stop being sensitive to them, because we always think it's somebody else. It's not somebody else. Whatsoever you do to the least of my brothers, that you do unto me. We're all connected. It's all connection. It's all one. That's the unity message. And that's the message to save the world. And that's the message I'm trying to bring to everybody. And there's an urgency, because right now, I really feel, a part of me feels we are just at the edge where one bad decision can take away all this beautiful planet that we have. One bad decision by one of these maniacs can really change the joy that we all have and make a lot of people suffer. And so together, collectively, we can change that. We can insulate humanity with our joy and our light, if we can get on one accord and believe that. So let's stop the race curse, because we can. We can stop it. We can. Just by knowing that we can, just by accepting that we can, and just by being the first person, I'll stop it by my choices. Okay, I'm gonna edit this in, because I didn't tell you the rest of the Mark story. So my friend Mark, if I tell you the story about this handsome, talented, beautiful person who did very well. He did well in construction. In fact, he helped me in my career in construction when I was young. And Mark died. Do you know how women who are abused, they find another abuser, even though you feel terrible to be abused, right? No one likes to be beaten up. These women are beaten up, right? Or other ways emotionally abused. And yet they find another abuser. The consciousness they have when they take on this abuse from the outside becomes who they are. And suddenly they seek this relationship again and again. And it's a cycle. I believe that people of color, or people who are part of the I don't know, what's a good word not to be offensive. If you're gay in a non-gay society, right, then you're on the outside, right? You're not accepted. You're not mainstream. Mark was gay, and we always knew he was gay. And Mark was gay from a little kid, and we all loved and accepted him just like he was. In fact, it wasn't a shocker when he finally came out. It was almost one of those guys like, what do you mean come out? Like, you're never in. You know what I mean? He was that guy, but he was hilarious, and we loved him. And then Mark was also black. I didn't tell you any of this when I started, because I wanted you to vision this person in your head of what this person was without the lines, without the race, without the stuff. And so when you start taking on the abuse of a society, when you pick up the energy that they don't want you and you're not wanted and you're negative, many people take that on and they just start abusing themselves. In fact, that's the consciousness they used to give slaves, is why they had to stay slaves even when they could get free. Because once you become a slave emotionally, once you become the abused person intellectually, and your consciousness becomes that, then you can't ever escape it. Once they put those chains on you, you can't ever break them free. And so Mark self-destructed. It's a hard thing to see. It's a hard thing to feel, and a road I could have gone down easily. I could be in that place. I could be with him and many other friends of mine, many other talented friends who took this abuse, who took this negativity. You don't belong. You're not part of the mainstream. Life would be better. The country would be better. The world would be better if you weren't here. That's a real thing people deal with. And to overcome that is a miracle. And so this what this message is. That's what this whole point of this message is. If you can impart that to young people, to a young man struggling with sexuality, a young black man, a brown man, a Latin man, whatever person who is feeling like they're on the outside, because you can see it in them. They didn't even have to be words. You want to get them before they embrace that as a philosophy, or if they're in that philosophy, they've accepted in their consciousness. The only way to break it is to find your spiritual nature. That's how AA saves people, by changing their relationship with God. That's how it works. It seems so simple, but it really is. If you can see the God in yourself, you can see the joy in yourself, then it need not kill any more people. And Marks don't have to happen. Doesn't have to be another tragedy like that. Anyway, that's the Mark story. I didn't finish. Didn't get to finish. I'm glad my wife reminded me, because otherwise I would have left it out. And really, it's really one of the crux of the messages I want to send. Anyway, thank you so much. And thank my wife. And thank all of you for being here. I'm going to edit this in so it makes sense, I hope. And that's the truth. And the truth shall make you free. And I know it's kind of bummer. This message was kind of down, or kind of bummer. But not because I don't love you. It's because I do love you, and because there's an urgency. Anyway, thank you. And I'll see you next week.